YouTube, how's it going?
Like and subscribe. Thank you.
Welcome to Trip Boomers, Tech-Bodge Emporium. I'm your host, Trip Boomer, as always. Before we start, I want to apologise about the audio. I know it's a little echoey, it's not the best, but I still haven't got a recording receiver device for my lav. So whilst the PC is off because we're going to be doing some stuff on it, I can't receive the recording of the audio. So we're going to have to use the mic on the phone. Sorry about that. That being said, anyone that has watched my video where I basically where I added a pump to my loop, they will have noticed that in it I said that the liquid looked like it had a slight tint of pinkiness to it, and that we were going to have to deal with that. That being said, I have got some more pure water, and I do have little Mayhems, Hades Plus and Inhibitor Plus. So we're going to be adding these to this, and then we're going to be swapping the liquid out in the loop, because I said that it might cause, that we might have issues. So let me get the glass off here first, and then I can show you what the problem is. As you can see, I'm in my trampy hoodie today because I might get grubby. Right guys, as you can see, the water in the loop is disgusting. Now, funny thing is, this didn't start doing this until I basically worked all of the air out of the loop. And then it just literally almost overnight started turning brown like this. So what I'm thinking is I'm hoping that, because we've obviously, if you remember, those two screw heads had a little bit of rust on them, so they were starting to do stuff. So what I'm hoping is that once the air had worked this out of the system, the fact that I've increased the flow rate has just sort of like worked any corrosion that had built up on the radiators and stuff in the loop, and it's come through. The other thing I'm hoping is why this is so brown at this end is that I purposely put this pump here. I know you're probably thinking that I'm just stuffing it in gaps that fill, but no, this is, I intended this to be like a sort of like a catch can, like a sump on a car engine. So because this is right at the bottom of the loop and it's facing down, gravity should help those fins collect any sort of cracking that's floating around in the loop. So I'm kind of hoping that this has worked like a catch can, and also part of the reason why this is brown. Now, I know this kind of looks like I've jankily just sort of stuffed it in any sort of hole. And let me just spin this a little bit. And I know it looks like the sketchiest mounting ever, but it's mounted like this for a reason. One of those reasons is that I can actually pop this out of the mountain, and it means that I can just sort of like hang it like a ball sack at the bottom of the loop, which you will see in a minute. So what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna lie the case on its back with this dangling down past it. If you see this stack of boxes here, what I'm gonna do with these stack of boxes is I'm going to put this jug on there, and hopefully we can have this dangling straight into there, and then I'll pop the cap on this, and then what we're going to do once it's lying down, we're going to take the pump off this side, and then that'll be the highest point of the loop. Take the cover off that, and that should release all of the water out of the loop. Then I've got the kettle boiled, so we've got some water that's boiling and it's now cooling a little bit in the kettle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the loop up with that kettle flush, just to get any sort of crap that might be floating around, any of this brown shit that might be floating around in the loop out. And then after that, we are going to fill it up with this and these Hades and Inhibitor additives. So hopefully that should sort this out, but this is not good. So I need to lie the system on its side, and we'll see if we can get this drained first, shall we? Right, is it a way that I can lie it down on this side? overhang. Let me get the pump out of there. Dangling like that. So as you can see, I can dangle that pump out. I can also pull the pump out so that we can check behind that one, see if there's any crap that needs to be cleaned out of it. But we're going to go up here and I'm going to undo this pump. I'm going to take this glass off, undo this pump, and then I've got a piece of plastic and some towels to throw over the top of here to stop anything leaking down onto there and then we'll crack this pump, and then that'll put this as the highest part of the loop and this as the lowest part of the loop, and that should basically allow everything to flow out of it. Hopefully, we will see. Right, okay guys, you should be able to see that basically I've put a bit of a tilt on this, so anything that does hit this plastic sheet will literally fall this way. Put a towel underneath so that if anything does drip, it at least has somewhere to soak into. Now we've got to go down there and pop that, empty out that tank, and then we'll come up here. I'll unscrew everything up here, and then hopefully it will fill that jug down the bottom as soon as I've let go of, as soon as the pressure is released. I mean, this is going to empty some of it out, but then as soon as I pop the top out of this, that should literally flush the majority of the system out. We may have to do a bit of shuggling around, but what we're going to do is I'm going to fill it back up, and then we'll flush it again, and then we'll fill it up with the good stuff, okay? So yeah, as you can see guys, this water is fucking vile. So what we need to do is get this to drain into there. So we need to make sure that this is somewhat below it. Kind of wedged it so it doesn't make too much of a mess. Let this shit drain straight out of here. Is once I've got this draining, I'm going to go up top and release the pressure, and I'm going to leave you down here watching that disgusting water come out of there. Because why not? First screw's out, the second screw out, third out, fourth out, and then I pop the copper off this, and it should just let go of everything else that's left in the system. Well, except for some corners that might show up, we'll have to move the stuff about for that, but for right now, release it. Okay, thin stack up here is disgusting. Definitely getting some build-up of crap on there, so we're going to have to deal with that. Look at the state of that water though. But there's more to drain out, but that is fucking disgusting. So we're going to find out what's going on in there now. But as you can see, the fin stack on this one has got a bit wrong. So we'll see what's going on. Right, okay guys, I have literally taken all three pumps off. I've cleaned the fin stacks on all three pumps. I am now just flushing the loop out with boiling water. Just boiling up some more water because we are now starting to reach a point where it's starting to come out clear. Like this is, I know it looks like piss, but in comparison to what's been coming out of this thing, that is an improvement. Do you know what I mean? If you're curious, these two here, basically because of how they are, it sits, the crap just sits in there. So if you fold over a couple of cotton buds and have them run next to each other, the water will automatically run straight out and straight down instead of splashing all over the floor. But I'm just boiling the kettle, we're going to go again, and hopefully it's going to come out clear. As soon as it's come out clear, we'll drain the loop. So all I'm literally doing is I'm filling it up at the top so far, and then I'm literally blowing down both channels of that to push everything through the system and out here, which is where we've got to now with this freaking piss water, which is again better than the brown shit that's been coming out of there. But I've just got the kettle boiling. I've got to let it cool a little bit before I run it, completely flush it. But we're going to run the kettle through again. Hopefully it'll start coming out clear. As soon as that stops looking piss coloured, I'll top the loop up. And for those of you that are curious, a rare under fucking case shot. As you can see, all the fans and stuff are completely open. Alright, so as you can see, the water's pretty much clear now. It's coming through pretty clear now. I think it's okay. I've blown all the water I can get out of the loop. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just seal it back up, fill it back up, run the pump a couple of times so we can get this loop as full as I can get it. And then test it out. Hopefully everything stays fresh, but it's clear now. Hey guys, it's the next day. I have cried. You know how when you watch videos on TV and on YouTube and, you know, things just work, like everything's working beautifully. Like switching the water out on this loop. I mean, I literally, I swear to you that tank is full of water. It is just literally that clean and clear in there. Right. Unfortunately, for some reason, during the process of literally bleeding all the air out of the loop, which, you know, rolling it around, during that process, I lost a pump. Unfortunately, it's the pump that's sat right on top of the 12500T, and there's not enough. Even so, there's not enough head pressure for both, and that loop is just literally not even cooling that chip. It's just, well, within 5 minutes, it's creeping up to 70 degrees. I mean, for context, with the loop running, you can fully saturate that CPU and it doesn't get over 40 degrees. So for it to be running up into the 70s within 5 minutes of doing nothing, obviously that pump needs addressing. Now, I know from previously, before I added the third pump, that 2 pumps in this loop in series is enough head pressure to get through this loop. So what we're going to have to do is, where the 2 back pumps are in parallel, we're going to have to use this bit of pipe here and switch it back to being in series, so that, and then basically I'm hoping that everything cools and everything runs through perfectly fine for the other pump on the back, the one on top of the capture rig, to just kind of act like a block, like a cooling block in the loop for now, until I can get a pump to replace it. That's the best case scenario, and hopefully we fit this and everything's good. Everything's Gucci. I've got my PC back for a bit, for the couple of weeks until I can source a new pump, and then we'll have another video whilst I add another pump back onto the loop. That is best case scenario. Worst case scenario is that it's still causing too much of an issue and I actually have to swap that pump for the one that's at the bottom there, which means that I have to put a pipe from there to run temporarily from the tank to down there, and then I've got to use that pump, which I've trimmed the edges off and stuff, and it's ugly as hell, as a temporary measure on top of the one at the back, which I'm kind of hoping I don't have to do. Like, I'm kind of hoping that I can put this into the loop. It's going to work fine because these 2 pumps are still working, so we've got the head pressure, and if anything, I know that other pump is going to increase head pressure to a point, but the way I'm looking at it is how this is split up between these 2 pumps. One of these pumps has to push through this radiator and this radiator, and the other pump has to push through that other pump and this radiator, and then the tank. So I think that head pressure wise we should be fine. I know that the pump sort of freewheels whilst it's not attached to anything. This time, I know I plugged it last time with like some steel bolts and PTFE tape. This time these are plastic bolts. They're still PTFE taped up to, you know, make them a bit bigger to fit in the old. But we'll plug this in, throw a cable tie around, and that'll stop them off. And because these are plastic and PTFE tape, it shouldn't cause any problems in the way of corrosion in the loop. and hopefully it stays nice and clear. So I've disconnected everything, so what we need to do is we're going to have to spin this round. I've also got this. Now don't get creeped out. I literally use this for like I use this for paint. You know, like touch up like any pitting or anything in paint that needs to be topped up before the lacquer goes on. I use this, but I've got the mixed solution, which has got the inhibitors and stuff in it in here. I just put that in here, and what I'm using this for is so that once I've connected this onto one side, I can then use this to get some water in, get some fluid into this pipe to try and alleviate as much air pocket as possible. And if I use this, it means that I can feed it and it'll dribble down the side and let the air come up. Otherwise, if you try and pour into there, it'll probably just fill to about here and leave a big air pocket to there. Right, okay. I've disconnected all the cabling. We can move these out of the way so they're just not in the way. Throw that up there. That is that's USB-C from the capture card to this motherboard. It goes through this pass-through. This is how I get capture. So this sends out a second signal to this DP, which goes through this pass-through on the motherboard, which then sends the signal to this USB-C, which then sends the signal. It also pumps it up to whatever refresh rate you need. It then sends a signal through to the capture card, which then comes out through this cable here, which then goes to the monitor, my gaming monitor, and gives me the 165 Hz refresh rate of my gaming monitor because it's connected to one. So that's how I keep my refresh rate while still capturing at 60 FPS. It's a bit of a long way around. This is just a link between the two systems so that I can pass files through at like 2.5 gig a second. But we'll move these out of the way so that it's easier to work with. Like, I'd just like to put into context, right? This was working perfectly before I changed the water out. Yes, it looks crystal clear now, and yes, I did literally pour, like, I flushed it through with about 2 litres of kettled water, but it was working perfectly when the water looked like this. Right, and this is what came out of it. It's disgusting. This is like what came out of it in the first flush. It's disgusting, right? The water looked like this, and it was both working perfect. It was working perfectly fine, yeah. I give it fresh, clean water, and the fucking pump gives it the ghost. Anyways, getting back to the point at hand, getting back to the matter at hand. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be disconnecting here and disconnecting here. We're going to bung these, and this pipe here is going to connect there to there, like that, and that will then put this into series instead of parallel. So at the minute, it's feeding this way, going into both pumps, and then coming out of both pumps and then going this way. Right, so we can't deal with that at the minute because obviously the other pump's not working and I need the 2 pumps for head pressure, and it now all that's happening is basically this pump, because this one's running and that one down there is running, the water's just sort of looping through this bit and bypassing this bit, which is, so it's not flowing. So I need to put it into series so that this bit actually gets a flow through it, and I'm hoping that fixes my issue for now until I can get a replacement. Right, I've got a bit of towel in the old catchment area. Let's just gently cut this cable tie off. Give me internal pressure for me to be able to get this on here. I know there's a split at the start. This is to help me get it on. Which we're fully on. The amount of pipe that's still on the thing. The beefiest cable tie on here. Do this. Alright, okay guys, I've filled this pipe full of water now. We're going to cut this one off. Stuff in there quickly. Right. So as you can see, we have now took it out of parallel, and now it's running in series, so it'll come out of here, go into there, come out of there, go that way, and come back in this way, in here. And the other pump should keep the head pressure up on the loop, and hopefully this will just act like a water block for now. Hey guys, welcome back. I thought I'd include the mic on this one, and now everything's working, and not destroy your ears for the last bit of the video. They are both idling at like 20 degrees or less now. The loop's working fine, and after solving the issue, I now know I have a pretty good idea why the water went brown, so it makes it a little less concerning because I have a good idea of why that happened. I know why that back pump has popped. I definitely know why that's burnt out, and I know why it wasn't cooling once I put it into series. I have an answer for all of it, and firstly we'll tackle the brown bit. Basically, remember if you watched the previous video where I water cooled it, I would have shown you the bolts that I'd plugged the end of these pipes with when it was in series. They were literally just steel bolts, but they were wrapped in PTFE tape. Now one of them had been submerged in water. The PTFE tape had pulled apart a bit, and the cross, the Phillips head, the cross head, had developed rust. So basically what I'm taking a good guess at is, because that was completely separated and sort of swirled around on itself, all the rust that would have come out of there would have collected on the inside of that pipe. Now I didn't clean the pipe out. I should have, or swapped it, but I didn't. So all the rust that had developed there, we'd got it fairly early. I don't think we got it too late. It looked sort of freshly started kind of thing, but all the rust that had collected in that pipe had collected just in that pipe. But as soon as we put the pipe back into the run, obviously with the water flow just rushing past it, it was just pulling it all straight off that pipe, which meant it just flooded into the system. So that's why it went brown. So I'm not too worried about any other corrosion in there. We completely flushed it out, and it is clean as a whistle in there. There's a little bit of McCracken floating around, but as I explained before, that bottom pump down there, I'm hoping to use that as sort of like a catch can, like a sump almost. Because it's not on a socket or anything, it doesn't really matter if it gets a little bit clogged up. And if when I put the pump on, I take that plate off, and if it needs a clean out because it collected a load of crap because it's at the bottom and facing straight down, which means anything that does come down on it, gravity is going to want to try and hold it there. So if it gets thrown into those fins, it's going to stay in those fins. So that's what I'm hoping down there. So we'll see that when I get the other pump to replace with. Yes. Oh, and the reason it wasn't cooling and the reason that back pump had burnt out is because I had an airlock in there. Let me get the bottle. Right. So before the airlock, this was this full. Right. And it took 2 days for me to even get rocking the system around to even get the airlock to just poke itself out. Now, the airlock is my fault. I actually designed the system so that I could fill it up and alleviate that actually happening, but my pig-headedness, I didn't fill it up how I was supposed to fill it up, and I just poured water in. Right. I designed this so that obviously these two pumps are in parallel. So what had happened is basically there was an airlock between these two pumps and this one here. Now with this one here, it was just chattering around in its own water and not really going anywhere, but it was with fully submerged because it's at the bottom of the tank, so there's no air pocket, so it wasn't too bad on that motor. The one at the back there, the problem is, because these were in parallel, they're almost on their own loop. So as soon as basically it was unable to push this way through the loop, through the radiators, as soon as the water wasn't able, it was basically going round in its own loop. And because this front pump is newer than the back one, they kind of just sort of battled to the death. I feel sorry for the pump at the back, because the easiest way to imagine it is basically, imagine swimming against the current whilst someone's blasting you in the face with a hose. Like, it gave up the ghost, didn't it? Bless it. So they were basically pushing against each other, and that one lost. So that's why that burnt out, and that's why it wasn't cooling afterwards, because this loop just was not able to move because of that airlock. And like I said, it was like a 350mm airlock. And the reason I did it wrong is basically what I'm supposed to do, what I designed it to do, because obviously filling's not the easiest thing in the world. I know I've got a res there. I can top up from the res, but it's not very good at filling from there. So what the design is that I lie this on its side, so this is up. I then take the plate off this and I fill from here. Now what I'm supposed to do is fill it to the point where, you know, I'm seeing water, and then with this pump disconnected completely, just having those bottom two pumps on, I'm supposed to turn the system on so that whilst it's lying there, it kind of works all the water into the loop underneath. I keep filling up at the top, and then basically it'll mean that all of the air will just come up those two pipes up to this pump. Every time there's an air pocket, it's just going to shoot up these pipes. So when I fill it up properly, it friggin' works. It was my fault for being lazy, and I basically just cost myself 2 days and a pump. So I'm not exactly happy about that. But it's done now. System's working really fine. Everything's nice and cool. I mean, at the minute, the 12900 KS, whilst it's doing nothing, is sat at 16 degrees. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, everything's working really well, so I can't complain there. The water's clear as crystal clear, and it's silent. Like, there's very little air in the loop now. It's gone from having like 300ml of air in there, like literally a can of Coke's worth of air pocket. That is what was causing my cooling problems. That is what burnt out the pump. People, fill your loops properly. This is a message to be taken. Because if I'd have just done what I designed the freaking loop to do when I want to fill it up, like I designed it, like basically to empty the loop, all I do is I take the lid off that, dangle it out like you've seen it, and I just literally seal off around the top of there, and I blow everything through, and it just comes out the bottom. It's beautiful for clearing it out, but I should have filled it properly, and it's my own fault. It's literally my own fault, because if I'd have filled it properly, it would have just done what it's supposed to do, and just it would have filled to here, but all of these radiators would have been full by that point, because at that point everything down there is just pumping the water through the loop. So these would have pushed all the air out of these radiators, which I think were the actual problem, these ones up here. It would have pushed all the air out of those radiators and like straight up the pipe to the pump that I'm filling up at. And then once that had stopped chattering down there, I could literally turn the system off, fill this up to the top, or keep it running and fill it up to the top, and I would have just completely filled the loop, like 100%. But you know, you live and you learn. I can't leave things alone, can I? Anyways, the system is working freaking awesome, and I'm gonna have to buy a pump to replace that one. We'll have to put the pipes back. So stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you, bye.